Good evening. We'll call the May 15 Reno County Planning Commission to order. Staff, will you please call the roll?
Knisley? Here. Grant? Here. Schaefer? Here. Seltzer? Here. Macklin? Here. Martin? Here. Gertson? Here.
Good to have everyone here tonight. I trust you had a chance to review your packets. In those packets were the minutes from April 17th. The chair will entertain a motion on those minutes.
So move.
Second.
I'll second.
I have one small typographical.
Oh, geez, Alan.
On page 17, I don't think anyone was consulting the firm, Marshall.
Oh, no, page 17.
Yeah, at the top.
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember a mattress store being a part of the firm.
Oh, did not see that. Okay. Firm Marshall.
Yeah.
Oh.
Somebody
Make that correction.
I assume Mark puts those in there to see if anybody reads them.
Just to make sure, yeah, it's nice to see somebody reads it.
This was an easy Where's Waldo on this one.
That's a very good catch. I'm glad somebody reads them. So,
You get an A and the rest of us get frown stickers.
There you go. All right, been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
correction, you want to
Oh,
amend your
do you
motion?
want-
Subject to the correction on page 17.
Okay. Is the second okay? I don't remember which one did it.
Okay with that, too.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving the April 17 minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Our agenda item for this evening is the discussion on the proposed text amendments on several of the articles. Staff, you've shared some things in our packet with some highlighting. Would you care to elaborate and kind of guide us along?
Sure, I thought it'd be better to maybe talk about all the text amendments versus trying to write some type of memo in here, and the board can take some notes as we go along here. So we've been discussing for a long time the potential desire to remove and change the agricultural lot split acreage from 7 acres to something different. And last month, this board asked me to prepare like some slides of potential issues with lot splits. And so I've done that. I can kind of go over those, which will kind of help explain what maybe some of the issues or some of the things that I'm seeing with lot splits, what's occurring out there right now. And then all of the text amendments that you see here are related to the potential amendment of removing that 7-acre designation in the agricultural district. So I knew it was going to be a lot, but as we got into it, it's a lot more than I thought it was. But you can see when we were going to change the ag lot split, we also wanted to take a look at setbacks as well. So when you did that, that affects a lot of other types of articles as well. So that's what you're seeing here, and I will try and go over those as quick as I can, but yet thoroughly, and certainly stop me if you have questions as we go along the way. Okay? So let's see here. So the first situation that you're seeing here is potentially an illegal lot split here. The blue lines that you're looking at are the parcels as they were established in 2016 when we adopted the subdivision regulations. So then anytime anybody wants to split land after 2016, it requires a lot split or a boundary adjustment. What you see in the yellow is the way the parcels are right now. And so as you can see, there was a potential split where somebody divided off about 11.79 acres. The property is zoned agricultural, triangle-shaped piece of property, and somebody split off 11.79 acres without going through the lot split process. To do a lot split, it's a 7-acre maximum, so that makes that parcel illegal. It also created another parcel to the west, just by the way that this triangle is shaped and the way it's fronting on 2 roads. So the parcel to the west, which is about maybe 3 acres at most. That would be illegal. And then the other parcel to the east would also be illegal because it's less than 40. And so it created a bad situation with that 7 acres. And so then with our width to depth ratio, if it was done legally, you have to comply with that 3-to-1 ratio. You would have a situation where you might have 50, 60 feet between the south side of that parcel and the highway. So you'd have a little strip of ground that would connect that small triangle to the west with the rest of the land. And that doesn't make, a lot of sense either to do something like that. So that was one situation. I can tell you though that this situation did end happily upon further review and investigation. It turned out that this property is actually 4 separate deeds. So it's one taxing parcel but 4 separate deeds, and so because of that, it would be considered a legal non-conforming parcel of ground. And so they were able to sell the ground as it is right now and keep that 11-acre split. And it'll just be considered a legal non-conforming, parcel because.
So you say there were 4 separate deeds. Is that just 4 separate owners on the deed, or just 4 separate deeds?
One owner. It was one owner that purchased
4 different parcels,
different
but
parcels.
combined them.
But it was combined for taxing purposes,
Okay.
yes.
Gotcha.
So, because what you look at on Beacon is not a deed map, it's a taxing map. And so you look at a situation like that, that land, that triangle could be consisted of 2 or 3 deeds that were just combined for taxing purposes, so that person doesn't get 4 tax bills. Like, here's a tax bill for this 4 acres, here's one for the 11, and here's one for the 15, and then here's one for the 17 acres. So, but something like that, if it was all considered one big triangle piece of property, it would have been a deal. And it was an issue for a while, but I thought it was a good example to kind of show the board.
What happened to the triangle to the west?
It's considered a legal, non-conforming parcel, and so somebody could theoretically go there and sell that legal description to somebody else, and then they could put a house on there potentially, or try
On
and
the
do
3
business.
acres?
Yeah. There's a lot of road right away. It's not gonna be a very big house, nor is it gonna be a very.
Zoned ag or what?
It's all zoned ag. It's all zoned ag, because see, when we did the parcel map, it was treated as one big 40-acre piece of ground, although it consisted of 4 separate deeds.
So the 4 deeds then predate.
Yes. Yes, they do.
Well, they did a lot, the lot split, they created 3 parcels of land, basically.
Yeah, yes,
They put the part they wanted was in the middle of the other 2.
right. And it makes sense, it goes all the way down to the other highway, so, you don't wanna have a small strip of ground that's 50 feet that's gonna connect to the other parcel. That doesn't make a lot of sense. So, but, yeah, so that was I got about 8 slides here. This is a situation here. These are all legal lot splits, and so what you're looking at is these parcels were created prior to 2016, and you've got a couple of parcels there on the north side that have 60 feet of road frontage, and then the one on the southwest corner there, it's got about 125 foot of road frontage. And so I present this to the board here just to kind of show you what could potentially happen if we don't have the right type of regulations in place that would prevent something like this. And I'm not saying that this is right or wrong or good or bad. If you think that this is something that is okay, then, we can change the regulations to allow something like this. But if you think that there might be some concerns with this, because here's a situation where you've got parcel lines in the middle of a pond. And so one person owns a portion of the pond, the other person owns another portion of the pond. But you've got, what you're ending up with is you're ending up with long, skinny strips of ground that are going out onto a township road or a county road. So then you're going to have multiple driveways out there versus requiring a planning situation where you would have maybe an interior road, whether that road be public road or if we change it to make it a private road, you wouldn't have a situation that would occur like that.
Didn't we also several years ago have property lines across a body of water here on, like on East Fourth?
Yeah, yes, we did.
They were all family owners, but they were
All
combining.
family owned, but
properties,
yeah,
and
but
it was
the
all-
property lines went across the body of water versus requiring platting and making the body of water like a reserve area where each lot would own 1/6, 1/8 or so of that body of water. And then your parcel line would stop at the shoreline. Another situation here, this was a partial legal lot split and then an illegal split. So what you're looking at, if somebody wanted to split the ground in the middle where you see the dark blue line in the middle and then you have the white parcel lines on the north and south side. So somebody wanted to take that large lot, the white parcel line or yellow parcel line is the original lot, they want to split that into two parcels, which makes sense, they'd be like 10-acre parcels, but because of our 3-to-1 lot width to lot depth ratio, they couldn't do it. They could not get to the east property line because of the ratio and the way they split, so they didn't have enough road frontage to be able to give me the appropriate amount of depth. So the one on the south side, he had to build his house on the front of that lot, and the other guy should have built his house on the front part of that lot too, but as you can see by the picture, he did not. You see which ones I'm talking about, it's kind of right there where the road name is in purple. It's those two parcels, and so what it does is it creates a portion of the parcel which would be legal, and then what they did was they did like an illegal 3-acre land division, which means that you can't issue permits on anything on the backside of that property. Because the only legal portion of that would be like, say, the front 7 acres, 7, 8 acres. The back portion of that's illegal because it's an illegal land division as it's mapped right now. All because of our width to depth ratio that we have.
What's the logic history behind the depth ratio?
The logic behind it was to have parcels that are squares, rectangles, and not long, skinny flag lots like what you see back here. All those lots, the majority of them, 2 or 3, they're considered like flag lots. Long, skinny driveway that opens up into a great big area. So that was the thinking behind putting a width to depth ratio in, is the fact that you're going to prevent something like that from occurring. But in this case, you can see what it did. They just went ahead and got an approval by me, but my survey doesn't look like what is being drawn on the parcel mapping right there. You know, my survey stops short of that, and then they just created an additional legal description and created an illegal parcel behind there. Because that's what they wanted. They wanted to split that parcel into two and build houses, but our width and depth issue prevented it from being split like the other lots are. The other lots you see on there, there's no yellow lines, and so all those were done prior to 2016.
So a long skinny lot from a planning perspective is a bad thing?
Potentially, yes. But for the fact that, you know, it creates problems with building sheds, or it can create wastewater well issues, you know, locating everything on there. But I mean, that's one theory, one planning theory, is that you don't want to have long skinny, because we've had long skinny lots in the past, and inevitably, like in the other case here, you know, they want to split that. Well, I've got 15 acres, but I've got a 800-foot long driveway that's 60 foot wide, and they want to be able to split the remaining 15 acres and divide it into two 7.5-acre parcels. Well, you can't, because you you don't have the proper road frontage to be able to split. And so that makes it hard for me to tell a person, I'm sorry, yeah, you got 15 acres, you got the right zoning, there should be no reason why you can't split, but for the fact that you have a flag lot that prevents that from being legally split. And so that person is stuck with a 15-acre piece of ground unless something changes in the regulations that would allow that to be split. Here's another situation here. This is an illegal split. It was zoned ag. They split off 10 acres. Maximum is 7 acres. Reasoning was they wanted to include the parcel lines up to, you probably can't see it on the aerial, but a couple of tree rows. But because we have a 7-acre maximum, they were prevented from going all the way to the north to be able to take into account the tree roads that they wanted to acquire. Problem with this one was it's mapped as a 10-acre piece. I approved a 7-acre split, and then they in turn did a separate legal description for another 3 acres that would take into account the tree row that my lot split would not allow to be approved. And so it got mapped as a 10-acre piece of ground, because when the appraiser gets it and maps the parcel, they see 2 legal descriptions. Well, they're not going to make it a separate 3-acre parcel, which would be essentially going to the west and to the north around that other one. So they just mapped it all as one. Well, that creates an illegal land division. And then going further to the east right there, that's another illegal split that happened on that property as well.
So there's no policing, if you want to call it that, between the Register of Deeds office and your office.
Yeah, there's no policing of it. I mean, the Register of Deeds office is
But you know
not
what they can do legally, and then they go ahead and do whatever they want, and the Register of Deeds just records it.
Yeah. Yeah, they have, the Register of Deeds isn't gonna be my security officer, police officer, and say, hey, did you check with planning before you're recording this? Now, in a perfect world, that would be very nice, because I could help a lot of people that probably, a lot of them just didn't know. Oh, I didn't realize I had to get this approved, or I didn't realize this was illegal. Thank you for telling me. It's not their job to know my regulations. Their job is to make sure the document that they're recording meets their standard. If it does, it's getting recorded.
Even though it doesn't meet another department standard.
Even though it doesn't meet another department standard, yeah.
No, but when you were, the health department was separate from planning, or this department, Public Works, both departments had to sign off on it.
We'd work together on
You had to work
things,
together,
yeah.
so why can't the Register of Deeds work with your office? Is what I'm saying. I mean,
It's
somebody should talk to the county commission about this, see if there's a way to.
you know, it's been a planning thing for like,
Legal situations keep cropping up.
it's been a planning thing for like 30, 40 years or more, you know, not just here.
Yeah, so, I mean, yeah, change can't happen, you know. if you-
I mean, it'd be nice, but it's not something that ever gets, you know, pushed, you know,
Yeah.
something like that, you know, because they want to record the document, and if they want to record it, that's fine, they can record it. Previous positions, we just want to put a sign up, hey, just put a sign up and just say, hey, have you checked with planning before you record this document? And not here, of course, not in this county, but previous, they said no, that they don't want to do that, it's not their job. So you end up with that. And so how this got caught was, they came in for a zoning permit, and I see a 10-acre piece of ground, I can't issue a permit, my lot split says 7. So they had to go and split that other 3 acres back out and put it under a separate deed. So here's another situation. I've been dealing with this off and on for a long time. This is a very large parcel. It's over 200 acres. The big square, you see there, and then it's got very little road frontage. They did one 7-acre lot split. Up there's a house that's up there where it actually says 30th Avenue, the pink. They did a 7-acre split, but as you can see, they didn't want to do a 7-acre split, they wanted to do a 23-acre split. So they recorded a 23-acre legal description, split that off. But now they can only build a house on the remaining portion of that acreage right there. This particular parcel, even though it's like 200+ acres, it does not have any road frontage except for up on 30th Avenue. So, pretty difficult situation, right there for one to put in additional houses. It's a road frontage issue.
House is in the long skinny,
Yeah, the house is in the long skinny.
and the two parcels adjacent to it are the ones that they also created.
Those are already split off, so those are different parcels and not associated with that land, so. Another one here, zone agricultural, it's about 29.6 acres right now, it looks like, and it was actually, a legal split as well. It's a 7-acre split in the ag. The state park wanted to buy a portion of this land. And the owner of the house sold the majority of it to them, but he only split off 26 acres, so that's a 26-acre ag parcel, and it should only be 7 acres. And the rest of it goes to the state, so. This is something that we'll get into eventually. It's not included in the text amendments. So this parcel right here, zone R1, about 15 acres total. And so zone R1, you can split off anything greater than 3. And so he split off a 5-acre piece of ground. The larger parcel does not have 165 feet of continuous road frontage. And so you can see there's land north of that parcel in yellow, and I don't have the exact measurement, it might be 115 feet, goes up to the highway. If you look on the south side of that parcel that was created, there's probably about 50 feet of road frontage. And so the question to this board eventually would be, should a parcel that is split have 165, 200, 300 foot of continuous road frontage, or should you be allowed to do a situation like that where I can have 50 feet on one side of my property, the new parcel, and then have the majority of the land on the other side of the parcel? This is about the only situation I know that this has ever occurred. We discussed it here at staff, and we didn't have any regulation that would prevent something like that, so we went ahead and approved that lot split, but I don't think that should be allowed. I don't know, you as the board may have a difference of opinion on that, if it's all right to have 30, 40 feet on the south side and then the majority of the land on the north side of the parcel, or vice versa, or something in between, or should it be all continuous frontage along there? Interesting scenario
It
though.
is an interesting split. Why they didn't take that little sliver to the south, there must have been some.
There's a road that goes there, so I don't know, it's a road that goes around the pond, and maybe you can enter or exit from that road that way and get around the south side of the pond. Now, yeah, I don't know, I'm just guessing, I don't know. It's I wasn't here to say, well, why are you doing that? I just, okay, this is the split you want, and so that's all I have for those, some of the issues, we're facing here. So, questions, comments? So that kind of leads us into your request to maybe have a text amendment on the 7-acre maximum. So I have these kind of in order where I think I'd like to discuss, because the main issue that we wanted to alleviate here and eliminate was the 7-acre split. So I want to start out with Article 3 in the subdivision regulations, and so probably start on page 3-3 first, and so it's Article 3-105, number 3, which talks about the 7-acre maximum. So all lots you create in the agricultural district shall be a minimum of 3 acres, but then it's a maximum of 7. So what we're proposing here is to eliminate that 7-acre maximum. So what we're saying, you got 40 acres of ground. If you want to divide off 3 acres, divide off 3 acres. If you want to divide off 20 acres, divide off 20 acres. So if you got a 40, you want to make it to 2 20s, great. That's your one split that you're allowed. It can be any combination of 3 acres and 37 up to a 10 acre and a 30 acre and anything in between. So you won't have that 7-acre maximum anymore.
But once that's split, let's just say they do a 3 and a 37. Okay, that 3-acre minimum, they make a building site, so on and so forth. That 37 acres is now strictly ag, it cannot become a building site. Well, they can make it a building site, but they can't split it off for more.
Yeah.
Can't split it unless you rezone and plat. You always want to throw that in there.
Okay,
So, if they want another home site, or they want to do further development, now you got to rezone, now you got to plat. Okay, so if that.
so
So it doesn't mean it's for never, ever,
it's
ever,
not like we're
never.
closing the door, they just have to go a different path.
That still maintains,
Well, I can-
back in 2016, the two houses per 40 acre kind of standard that was set. It doesn't mean they can't change, it just means that if a person wants to, then they have to rezone and plat and go through that process.
But this is major opening the doors. You
Yeah.
can split at 40 any way you want to, as long as the minimum split is 3 acres.
Right.
But you can only do that once.
Oh, yeah, that was.
Like, so the original spirit of where we're only gonna split
40
an ag
once.
lot one time before it has to come back before the board.
Right.
We're still keeping that.
But you have many splits that you can do.
You can do any kind of crazy, as long as it meets the other regulations.
Right.
Yeah.
And has 3 acres,
Right, 3
But-
acres is the minimum.
but once, only one time.
Question, Mark, you
That's your
say,
planning.
in that same section, says no portion of either lot or tract shall be less than the minimum lot width requirement. Where's that set out?
That'll be the next page on Article 13, which is what we'll get to.
I knew there was an answer.
I know, yeah, that's why I tried to do it in some kind of sequential order, because I knew that there'd be other questions. Well, what's the minimum lot width? What's the minimum lot depth? And so, talk about the lot split, what we want to do here, and then we'll move on to what we're gonna do with parcel width, parcel depth, setbacks, so on and so
And
forth.
that one split, there, your last sentence there, so like that 3 acres can't be 85% pond, and then they try to build a house if environmental wouldn't approve a septic system, correct?
Correct, yes. So what that statement was added right at the end, and we had talked about that. What we're trying to get at from here is, you split 3 acres, but like you said, if 85% of the lot is pond, kind of like what we had here, then you're not gonna get a permit, so you might as well not do the split, because you're not complying with all the public works divisions here. Same thing as if
They could do the split, they just couldn't build
they
it.
wouldn't be able to build on
Built
it.
on.
Yeah.
Another
So-
question, in our earlier conversations, when we were talking about making this change on ag lot splits, because back, was it before 16 or somewhere there, when we came up with the 7-acre minimum, was that 16, 17, 18, somewhere in there, when we
Yeah.
changed that. Before that, there was like a 10-acre or some other minimum.
It's 10-acre minimum in the ag
Yeah,
before
and
16.
Then we went down to the 7, and now we're trying to figure that out.
Well, we went from 10 to 40.
We had discussed the possibility of giving anyone who had done an ag lot split under those earlier provisions, a one-time option to do a boundary adjustment, or whatever you want to call it. Because we had a case in point of one person I know that we had visited with, several of us, that had bought a quarter section of ground and wanted to sell 20 acres of it. And we said, no, you can only do 7.
Right.
So I'm not sure what he wound up doing. Maybe you do, but I don't.
Yeah, I don't know, I
But,
couldn't find the part, I was trying to put it on here.
I
couldn't
had
find
talked
the
to him
parcel.
and said, well, you can only legally sell the guy 7 acres, but you can, lease him 13 acres or something. And work out a lease purchase thing, and then if the law changes, we can do something with it. So, I mean, were we going to do anything to allow people that did lot splits under those prior rules to make a one-time change with a boundary adjustment?
Will illegal non-conforming be automatically changed to conforming if with this rule change?
Yeah, it would.
Or if they did a legal lot split, but they wanted to do more, and the parties involved still want to do more, and they go back and redo that to fix it.
So if you're saying the 7 out of the 40 has already been taken out,
Yeah.
this is all prior to, can they split that 33 acres?
Can they go
again?
in and adjust that 7 acres, say, to make it 20 acres?
They can do boundary adjustments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're talking about splits, and when we talk splits, you gotta keep in mind that we're talking about splitting your ground to build a house, structure. Okay? So that's what we're talking about with this. So in your scenario, yeah, if the maximum allowed was 7, they really wanted 20, but my reg said, no, you can't have 20 because that'd be an illegal land division with a house on it.
Right.
Now, like what Don said, you would just come back and you would do a boundary adjustment, and you would boundary adjust.
Now, we could do that under the proposed regulations we're talking about, because we've done away with that 7 acre
Yes.
minimum.
Yes.
They couldn't do it earlier with the
Can't
7.
do it now.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right, all right.
because, you can't do it because of the fact that,
We want to make sure there's a mechanism for that to
yeah, they
happen.
can't do it because it's a 7 acre maximum, because they already did a 7 acre maximum split. Now, if they did a 3 acre ag lot split and they wanted to go up to 7, yeah, we can approve that. But yeah, it would be a boundary adjustment, so I can only buy 7, I really wanted 10, or I really wanted 20. You come in with another survey and you do what we call a boundary adjustment, because a boundary adjustment doesn't create a new building site. A boundary adjustment is like, hey, I've got a shed that's,
Footprint of the existing.
yeah, changing the footprint, it's like I've got
Existing tract.
I've got a shed that's too close to a property line, hey, can I can I buy like, 10 foot of your land to make it conforming? That's a boundary adjustment, so, yeah, so that, if this goes through as written, then yeah, that, something like that would now be allowed.
Okay.
I have another logic question. The limit is, you can only do the split once. So let's say I have 40 acres and I split off a 3 acre tract and I'm left with 37. Why is it bad to be able to split that into a 20 and a 17? What's magic about only 2? I mean, I can see where at some point you would have a whole, a subdivision of 3 acre tracts.
Yeah, you'll end up with the situation that you have on the screen. I mean, don't you want to have some kind of say-so and how that land is ultimately developed? I mean, sure, I mean, in your example, a 20 to 17, well, yeah, is that bad? No, that's not really bad. But then what happens when that person takes that 20, now, well, why can't I just do 2 10s out of that 20? And you just keep cutting it down, keep cutting it down.
Yeah, I can see where there needs to be some limitation, but 2 doesn't seem like it gives much flexibility.
Because with that 40 is agricultural.
I mean, that,
And so that's why you try to keep it agricultural, which is what we're supposed to do, which is the opposite of planning and zoning in reality. Because every time you allow anything, it's not agriculture unless it's a building on that agriculture. So when it's zoned agriculture, that's why there's only one split. If you want more splits, then plat it, now it's not agriculture. Or you just own it something else.
You accomplish what Garth is proposing, you just have to plant the land and
Yes.
go different route, a little more costly process, but it can do it, yes.
Well, and it gives the opportunity for like us to have, as a body, input before something like that's created. Is that?
yes,
So you don't wind
exactly.
up with a.
At that point, we have
hodgepodge of
a
lots.
chance to see how the lots are gonna be let, and make sure we're not creating an issue like what Alan said, where we got a 5 acre tract and 90% of it's lake. Oh, okay, well, what are we gonna do with that? And so, So it gives us more input on a review of that. And like what Don said, it's ag, and so if somebody is saying that this isn't agricultural property anymore, then they should have to come before this board and tell this board why this should not be agricultural property anymore. It's more suited for residential use. And then if that's the case, then you'll rezone that property to residential and then let him go through that process to plat that land out.
Has there ever been a case where the decision was no, the property has to remain ag?
Yeah.
Can't split it more than once.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
That
rezones,
means
yeah,
ag.
we've denied rezones in the past.
Because it needs to remain,
It should be ag, yeah, it's not, we found that it wasn't appropriate at that time, yeah. Yeah, you have a lot. Mm-hmm. Like the subdivision we did, a few years ago, that was already residential, so there was no debate on whether it should be a subdivision or it should remain as a small farmette, if you will, a 10-acre tract or so, because it was already zoned residential. He had that right to go ahead and divide them into 3-acre lots if he wanted to, and that's what he chose to do, so.
Well, if you got somebody that's got 40 acres and they got 3 kids, so they want to split it amongst the 3 kids, we can't do that without platting
No,
it. How expensive is it to plat that?
It's, yeah, I mean, because with plating, you have surveyor fees,
Yeah.
and then you're gonna have engineers involved to develop drainage plans.
Yeah.
And what you're talking about, that might be phase 2 of our maybe revision of the subdivision regulations is, then you gotta build a public road. So I'll just throw that out there right quick.
One road in and then.
So the next phase of all this potentially would be, do we require public roads anymore? Or do we require platting? Or is there something in between a full-blown subdivision plat
Yeah.
and versus somebody just recording tracts of ground, that we can still have a review process over to make sure everything looks good? Utilities are taken care of with easements if they need easements out there, and let them go that way, or what do we do in that situation? So that's the next phase.
Somehow it just doesn't seem fair that you can't split something in thirds, without having to spend $100,000 or something.
Yeah, right. That's the next.
If it could be done
I
for
think that's-
5,000,
yeah.
maybe that'd be
You
okay.
bring up a good point, because I think that's the next phase. If we can get through all this, then, okay, what do we do from here? Talking about platting and public roads.
120 acres split into 3 40-acre tracts, you're all right.
The thing is, though, you gotta remember, yeah, it's limited on a 40, but if you had, an 80, yeah, then you can get, right now, you can get 4 houses out there without any kind of review process by you or the commissioners. And so, you can take the 140, do a split, it could be 2 20s, if this goes through, and then you take your other 40 and split that into another 20 for the other kid if you'd want to. And under the current regs, you'd be limited to the 7 acres split on each one of those 40s.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so, okay. Go back to then page 303-2 here. No water tract may be less than the minimum lot width. We'll discuss that next under number 7. And then number 8, like I said, we want everything to be in compliance. So if for some reason road and bridge won't give a culvert permit to somebody based on that tract, then you can't split it. Or if there's a septic and well issue, no, you're not gonna be able to split. So whatever you split still has to be in compliance with all the divisions of public works. It's not just planning and zoning. You still have to work with environmental, you still have to work with public works as well as far as the entrances, or your township for that matter.
I was just gonna ask that, where does that play in? I know you notify them, maybe not so much on lot splits,
Splits we don't.
but somebody's gonna be contacting them for a culvert at some point.
They should. I always tell them to when I issue the permit, I say, okay, now you gotta go to your township and contact them for their entrance permit policy or on that.
That they don't have.
which they may not have, but
Yeah.
I still tell
They
them.
go out there and go, yep, you need about this big and go with it.
Yeah, so.
I get it.
Then going back on 3-3, a lot of what you see under number 4, it's just taking out what I think is unnecessary words. We don't need to say Reno County, we know it's the Reno County subdivision regulations. We don't need the words then applicable. Under 3-106, homestead lot splits, same thing applies to a homestead lot split. This board has done 2 homestead lot splits, I believe, since it's been in existence here. 7-acre maximum is still in play. A homestead lot split is where you have a house on a large tract of ground, and there's no way that you can meet with the depth ratio. It's really why this was put in place here. You know, because the house sits so far back into the parcel, by the time you figure out the 3-to-1 width to depth ratio, you're not gonna be able to split the ground, because you're gonna have, one, you're gonna have greater than the 3-to-1 ratio, and number 2 is you're gonna have more than 7 acres involved with that, so both of those are issues, and so I left homestead lot split things. There may be a situation where somebody wants to apply for a homestead lot split and have that house come out onto an easement. This is the only situation where somebody can have a parcel of ground come out and have frontage through an easement situation. So we had one on Wilson Road, we had one up on 82nd Avenue.
So you're talking more like a flag lot then?
It's like more like a flag lot, yeah. What it would look like, it'd just be a big box or so in the middle of an 80 or 40 or whatever, and then you would have an easement that the surveyor would create that would lead out to the road, preferably down the driveway of that house. It would be easy, and then they would sell the house along with the easement and keep their farm ground for their income.
So in other words, the actual tract is the tract in the middle of the
Correct.
parcel.
Yep.
And then the easement is just, that's not part of the tract, it's just an easement agreement. Okay.
Included in all that, yeah. We took out a lot of stuff with compliance. You'll see in the regulations a lot of compliance with the sanitation code.
Right.
Yeah, and that's great, but because we put the other wording in there, compliance with all public works policies and regulations, we don't need to have a specific reference to the sanitation code. The other one under number 4, we eliminated that. It's not really something that planning and zoning needs to get into, the appropriate documentation provided regarding the responsibility of the owners. You know, they're talking about the responsibility of who maintains the easement, if you will. That's not something that planning and zoning really needs to be bothered with, and so we eliminated that. So in summary, we would eliminate the 7-acre split in the ag district and allow one split of any acreage so long as the parcel is above 3 acres or 3 acres and above. Okay, the other documents will probably go a little bit faster here. So the other big one then is we gotta determine what is the minimum lot frontage, minimum lot width. And then while we're doing that, we've also had previous discussions on setback requirements. So I gave you, on one side is the existing regulations, and then on the other page is what we're proposing as staff to the board. Again, we haven't had a lot of discussion, on this, but what we're looking at doing, and what one of our goals was to be consistent throughout all of these zoning districts. And so a lot of the setbacks will go down as far as requirements. A couple of them will actually go up, as you can see. What we're looking at across the board, 20-foot setback from the right-of-way and 10 feet on all other property lines. If you see under the existing, the R2, R3, and V1 zoning districts have an 8-foot side yard, but in order to keep the consistency, we just made everything 10 foot, so they'll actually, as proposed, have a 2-foot increase, but they'll have more front yard available to them. And a lot of times they'll have more of their rear yard also available, because a lot of the rear yards were 20 feet as well.
Got a question. Now, I know your goal is uniformity, and, you know, I'm not hung up on that. And my question is particularly on the ag setback, where you're saying, you know, front yard's 20 feet, side yard's 10 feet, rear yard's 10 feet. To me, an ag lot is much different than a residential lot, because you're situated in farm country, and you may be next door to like a CRP field that needs to be burned every few years. Would you want a grass fire 10 feet from your property line? You know, to me, it's too close for.
This is the minimum, they can build it wherever they want.
Well, I know. I understand they can put it wherever they want, but, you know, people do dumb things too. You know,
Yeah.
that's why
Yeah.
my concern is that, particularly on ag, I know goes against your uniformity idea, but to me, I think those setbacks should be a little greater on ag because of just the nature of the beast we're looking at.
So what if you have a 3-acre lot in ag that you're gonna build your house on, you want 50-foot setbacks?
I don't know.
That's still, I mean, I'm just,
Yeah,
see how, I know,
Yeah,
this is our world.
yeah, I know.
Yeah, it was challenged to me. So you have a 45 acre piece of ground, and it's zone ag, and they have to be 50 feet and 30 feet. Right next door to you, you just happen to have a 36-acre piece of ground, still under crops, just like the other one, and it's zoned residential because it was less than 40, and he only has to be 30 feet and 10 feet. So the challenge to me was, well, what's the difference? I don't have an argument. I can't argue it. I don't know.
Yeah, I see your point.
Yeah, I see your point too. How do you account for that?
Where does regulation stop and protection begin?
That's kind of my point. I mean, it's.
I don't think we can mandate common sense to a point. But we can,
So,
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I've got, you know, I mean, I used to sit right next to a CRP field. It's a Milo field now, but it was CRP, and then there's probably 50-foot setback between my house and the field, and then, you know, with the permission of the owner, I used to mow another 50 feet, so I had about 100 feet. I felt comfortable with that, you know, and, I mean, and we burned it a couple times.
I think another thing in the same realm would be the lack of maximum on building heights for ag property. And, you know, if I can build a 200-foot tall structure 10 feet from the property line, I don't think that's a good strategy going forward for the neighboring properties. Because there is no, for a maximum height, there's no limit on ag. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So if I'm next door in a R1, 2, or 3, I may be living in the shadow of your grain elevator.
What's the difference between that and a big cottonwood tree?
What I was gonna say, Garth, you know, you gotta remember too that ag is exempt from regulations, and so you could have your little 3-acre non-farmhouse out in the country, and you could be surrounded by farm ground, and yeah, you could have a grain silo, you could have a large machinery shed. It could be on the property line because it's exempt from zoning regulations. Now, we like to have the farm building at least, you know, 20 feet off the road right away, but they can put that building anywhere they want.
It's exempt, but we can put minimums for
the front yard, but everything else is exempt. And so, yeah,
What you're saying here, it would be 10.
For non-ag, it's for non-ag buildings in the ag district. so-
Non-ag building.
Non-ag
Like a
building.
So the
house.
setbacks are for the house
For the
on,
house or,
Setbacks for a
Yeah,
house.
on land zoned
Not
ag.
for a barn
you know, you could have,
or something, yeah.
yeah, you could have an agricultural property and not be in agricultural production.
So you could build one of these seed silo deals with all the machinery on it and everything.
Green bin and a leg, and you could have the
Right
scale.
up to the-
You have a lot of
Right off.
ag lot split houses. I mean, this is a lot of for the ag lot splits where, yeah.
But you can only build that bin in a leg if you're using it for your operation, right? If you're selling seed, now you're a commercial outfit and you need a conditional use
Right.
permit, right?
Maybe.
Maybe? Oh, really?
If that's your only, if that's your only source of income.
Yeah, yeah.
So if someone's selling seed on the side and they want to build a bin with a leg, but they're using that bin to hold seed they're selling commercially,
That they're raising.
well, not necessarily.
If they're, okay, if they're, yeah.
If they.
Like, if they're raising some of it, but some of it's different varieties they didn't raise.
It depends on if they're selling their own or if they're bringing it in.
How do we determine gainfully?
Alan, you're just trying to confuse things.
DNA test
I
them.
mean, a farmer can sell grain, so that's ag.
They can sell, so they can sell seed and it's, okay.
They can buy seed and sell seed.
So.
They're selling seed doesn't mean they're selling the seed they bought, you know, how are you gonna prove it?
It's ag.
I just, let's just say we've decided on our lot split dimensions and that kind of thing, acreages. I just split off 10 acres. I work in town, but I'm also I'm gonna become a XYZ seed rep. I'm still zoned ag, but I'm not gainfully, I am not gainfully employed, I guess you want to call it, on a farm. I'm not engaged in farming itself. But I have 10 acres, but I'm working in town, but I'm going to sell seed on the side. How does that, I mean, I'm getting way out in the weeds here.
But
I just
there
wanna-
are situations like
There
that.
are situations like that.
Yeah.
How do we treat those type of facilities? Do those facilities get treated as a commercial, to Alan's point? Or does it fall under the ag? You're still in that
Conditional
agricultural.
use permit because you're not growing the seed or producing the seed on site.
All right, we're buying the seed for resale. So
Well, it's
that
a
would,
commercial, it's a retail, commercial.
So then it's a retail outfit.
Retail wholesale.
so then it would go through a CUP. Perfect.
Yeah, so.
Carly?
Escape,
Early.
yeah.
You didn't leave till 6.
Well, I came early, I get to leave early.
There you go.
I have another
Good
commitment I
evening.
have to take my wife to at certain times.
Enjoy.
Yep,
I promised
enjoy
her I'd be home.
your evening, and we'll see you in a month.
So, yeah, you bet. So,
So that makes sense. I'm just trying to put my head around how this all works. I probably had it in my head, I've just.
and it doesn't have to be
Just start-
zoned agricultural to be an agricultural use. It's land or buildings used for agricultural purposes. And so you could have, like I said, you could have a 35 acre parcel zone R1, you got corn on it.
So my R1, I live on 9 acres. My R1, if I put a loafing shed that I'm gonna have bulls in the off-season, I would just have to come to you and say, hey, this is what I'm doing, and then I'd rubber stamp it. I'd
Yep.
show you location, dimensions, setbacks, you'd rubber
Floodplain.
stamp it and go.
Yep. No fee permit and go, yep, even though you're zoned R1. Yep, if it's used
Ag
to,
use.
it's use. Yep, so it doesn't, the zoning is immaterial really, it's the land or the building if it's used for ag purposes. So it doesn't have anything to do with zoning.
All right,
Now,
so
does that, okay, now I'm gonna, hang on now, I'm gonna put another layer on that. Okay? Where does that figure into the footprint, the square footage footprint?
For like,
For like R1, the acreage, like, up to .2 and then, or up to 2, like 1.9 acres and below get, what is it, 2,000 square feet and 2.1 and above get 5,000 square feet. How does that calculation come into that same scenario? since I'm an R1.
Since you're R1, how do you think it comes into play? Or do you just want me to say?
Well, I'm just thinking, okay, ag, we're saying everything ag is exempt, so is that a get out of jail free card for?
It's exempt. So long as it's used exclusively for ag purposes. It's
So if you want to put up a shed to store your high-powered automobiles there, then that's a different story.
Yes. I don't want to.
So I've got a tractor and a stock trailer and an old pickup,
You need a shed to put those in.
and I need a shed to put those in.
Fine.
So since I have a tractor, and it's an old farm tractor, and I use it to rake hay and
You all right?
the cows, I could put up a storage shed. I'm just using that as a
Yep,
You used the pickup for ag too?
Yeah. So it would just be a rubber stamp.
You just can't put your boat in there.
Yep.
That it?
If all of a sudden I
Conditional use permit for the boat.
buy a boat, I'm gonna have to come back here. That's the
I
scenario.
have to move my boat out of my shed.
We'll be coming to visit you, Steve.
We're checking
No, I'm
the
just-
spy satellites when we
Just,
find over here.
just trying to get the lay of the land, so when we do our setbacks, we understand what we're getting into.
Agriculture's exempt.
Doesn't count toward the square footage of BZA.
There's no way
cases.
we can put setbacks on there
Did it
without getting into zoning.
Did that kind of muddy the water for you,
Right.
Garth, or did it kind of clarify? I kind of hijacked your question.
Well, I get that ag is exempt,
I'm trying to wrap it too, where I'm,
I'm thinking, trying to be good planners and thinking of neighboring properties.
Yes.
And, what's allowed, whether it's agriculture or not. I don't, for me, agriculture maybe shouldn't always get a get out of jail free card for everything. It certainly can create problems for other property owners.
there's some dynamics there that could
Yeah.
be.
It just seems like every property ought to have some kind of setback. I mean, 10 feet, but
Okay.
Well, I mean, you're concerned maybe about, you're talking mainly exclusively about the ag? Is that?
well, that's the only thing that's exempt, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, yeah, that's what we're
building.
So it's the ag structure.
Ag structures are exempt.
So
Yeah.
they're-
So we're talking about ag buildings, not ag zoning.
Yes, yes.
Right.
Ag-
So
yeah.
there's not much you can do about that. Not much you can do about it. It's statute, exempt.
statute from,
To exempt ag, land and buildings used
Kansas
for ag
statute.
purposes.
state, it's a state,
Statute.
okay.
State, yeah. it's
No,
not-
right, not
well, it's
county deal.
It's not county, it's not us.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
it's
we
not
can't
us.
touch it. Yeah, all right.
Yeah. I mean, I get it, but I mean,
Yeah.
Try to touch it if you want to fight.
Okay, now,
So we're.
doesn't make sense, but it makes sense.
So circling back, what we're seeing that you gave us, that's for a primary residence.
primary residence or accessory building.
Non-ag building.
Non-ag, non-ag.
Yeah, non-ag building, where it's a house or a.
That's for a building 10 by 12 or 100 by 200. Because ag zoning does not have the accessory building restriction, only the residential. So every building would be at least 10 foot from all the other property lines and 20 foot from the road right of way.
The proposed just gets the landowners a lot more use of their land.
Yeah.
It does, yeah.
Now, you go further into this, if you look at what I've got in the letters, letter D, if you've got a easement, if you're in a planned subdivision, or if you've got a pipeline running through your property, then you can't put the building in a platted easement.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of what we had last month, if you remember. With that gentleman wanted to build that big building in a drainage easement. Yeah, it's like, we approved the land use, but yet we can't approve it in that location.
So basically, on your setback, so the front yard, that is generally gonna be facing a roadway. Correct.
Or roads, yes.
Road or road.
Or roads,
Yeah,
yes.
so you're looking at the side and rear are the ones that you're looking at bumping up against other property lines and not a roadway.
Yes.
Right.
And if you look at what's existing now, under the side yard, you're looking at
Yeah.
10 or 8.
Yeah.
And so that's relatively staying the same, with the exception of the ag district, which was 30.
Right.
Now, if you're on a corner lot, no matter where the front door is, it's still gonna be 10. Or, I mean, it's still gonna be 20.
20.
Still gonna be 20, both roads.
Later on, I mean, we're gonna eliminate, if we reduce the setback as proposed, then back in Article 14, we propose to eliminate the break that you get for having 2 front yard setbacks. So we have situations where if you have corner lot, you got 2 front yards, setback requirements, and so regulations would permit you to reduce the side front yard down to 15 feet. I know we had a long discussion on this, and so.
Well, I'm thinking of this building that we denied up north of town. It was it was on a corner lot. It was off of 56th Street.
Yes, yes.
And it was on a corner lot, and it was too close, because it was a side yard. Or it was a front yard.
It was a front yard.
I forget all the.
He had 2 front yards, 2 side yards, yeah.
Yep.
It was a street.
Yep, so it was too
It was
close.
like 10 foot from the right of way.
Yes.
If that.
Right, so with that change, if we go with the proposed, would that be permitted?
No.
Still wouldn't, because we're still doing the
Still gonna be
20
20
feet.
foot from every road right of way.
You're on a corner lot? You
You're on a
just
corner
said something about 15 feet on the side yard.
That's
side yard.
existing, that's current.
Oh,
Current, you gotta be 30 off the short side, you can be 15 feet off the long side of your lot.
and your proposed, you would be 20?
If we reduce it from 30 to 20, now we're giving you more use of your land. Now, we feel like there's no need to have another break in there to let you go and have
Closer, okay.
closer.
So no matter where you're at, the road is gonna be 20 feet.
No matter where you're at, if you got 1, 2, or 3 roads or whatever, you got 4 roads, it's gonna be a 20-foot setback all around.
Okay.
No break.
Footnote B says corner lots have a minimum of 2 front yards.
Yes.
Okay,
Is that true? If you have a corner lot, you have 2 front yards, even if the house faces one street?
Yes. You have 2
Defined front yard?
Yeah, you have
Front yard is defined by the street, right?
right. You have a front yard setback.
so
Not front yard in the sense that
Yeah, okay.
you have 2 front yards.
I'm gonna draw. I
You
have,
can give them
I have 500 by 700. Okay, I have a road here, and I have a road here.
Right.
Okay, my driveway comes in here, and approximately 150 feet in is my house. My front door faces the east. This would be, I'm sorry, this is backwards. Let me draw it let me draw this per scale. So the map is good. I got a road here, this is east. And this is north. Okay. I've got 2 roads. I have a driveway about right here. I have a house right here. My front door faces the east. And I saw Don shaking his head about front yard, side yard. How are we gonna determine, is this my front yard now with my door facing this way? This is almost 3 acres.
You
The
have
front-
2 front yards.
I have, in the regulations we have right now, I have 2 front yards, yes.
And proposed.
And proposed. And in proposed.
And they both have to be 20.
Yep.
On the
Okay.
proposed.
So I'm
That makes it
I'm
simple.
roughly 100 feet here,
All right.
and I'm good there.
Yep.
This is 700 feet from here to here, so do your math, we're about 200 plus. So this would be considered, if,
You don't need to
I
move your
struggle,
house.
I struggle with 2 front yards.
It's hard to get it past.
I think what you're running at is on a residential lots where you're in more developed areas, you're gonna, I can see his point, if you have smaller lots, and you have on a corner lot, then yeah, you have, but that's the problem
But
with
this
corner
is,
lots.
this is R1.
You got more grass to mow, you know,
But this will simplify it,
yeah,
because the rule will just be 20 feet,
yeah, period, it's standard, yeah.
both sides.
Instead of 30 and 15.
Don't care where the
But
front-
it was 30 and 15, now it's just.
I gotta be 30 feet off of my,
Or 30.
my short side, you know, like my east side, I have to be 30 feet, but,
30.
so I gotta be 30 there, but because the north side of the property is longer, then I can be 15 feet off of that
So
road.
I can be 15 here and 30 here, the way it's written today.
Yeah, yes.
And so we're going 20 and 20.
Right,
So it's simple.
yeah.
Okay, I'm gaining.
Yeah.
I'm just,
no-
this is,
So the 20 and 20 is good. The fact that your front yard isn't the front door facing the road is hard to get past.
that's exactly where I'm at.
But that's just a, yeah, I get it. But
Maybe
change is good.
Maybe front yard needs to be defined differently. Maybe it needs to be like road yard or something. I'm sure there's a better term that Mark can
I'll
come
use
up
your
with.
razor.
Yeah.
Because it's not really whether it's in the front or the back, other than it's from the perspective of the road.
Of the road,
Not from the perspective of the front
Oh,
porch.
right, exactly. Alan did.
You gotta get the front yard thing out of your head.
Right, it's not, oh, it's not my front
Because
door.
I agree.
It's just yard.
Yard, yeah.
Yard, and it's 20 feet.
It's the yard adjacent to the road.
Any portion of your yard.
Maybe you could change
cannot
the
be any
wording
closer
in
than 20
the
foot from the road.
document to reflect
That-
20 feet from
That
a
just makes it
road right, a
simple.
road
Yeah.
right away or something
Yeah.
like that, you know? Instead of calling it a front yard.
Nope, that's fair enough.
And a side front yard, then you confuse everybody, what's a side front yard?
It's hard to get past that. It's not for Mark, but it is for me.
Yeah, we got Russ confused.
Well, I'm on the straight and narrow now, but it's just, look at front yard and I'm thinking front door.
We don't care about your front door.
You could care less what color my front door is.
Right.
I don't care which way it faces or
Never
what if you're,
If I never use the front
You
door.
always park in back.
There you
what
go.
if it faces the corner? What if your house faces the intersection? Now what? Now where's your front
What
yard?
if it's at an angle?
Then we're up the creek. We got some geometry and trigonometry
So-
to figure it out.
Now it'll just be 20 feet.
Fair enough.
So then along
I'm good
with
with
that, with the depths, we would reduce the ag to 200 by 200 minimum. It's 660 now. R1 would go down to 150, down from 165. And then R2 would also go down to 100 because usually R2 are smaller lots. R3 would go down to 100 as well. Now, the village district doesn't have a minimum, it's just gonna be as platted. The village district only applies to Medora and Yoder area. And that's just the middle of Yoder, not the whole, what you would think of as the community of Yoder. It's just the downtown area, if you will.
Residential area or whatever you want to call it, yeah.
Those are already platted as what we call town sites. And so they've already got lots established, they're like 100 by 200, I think a lot of them are. Medora's a little bit different. But you're not gonna be able to rezone something from R3 to village. The village district it's locked down, it's locked in stone here. It's never gonna change from what it is right now. And so there's no need to have a minimum width or depth, okay?
And that's state statute.
No,
No?
no.
Okay.
No, so that's why you don't see any numbers here. But if somebody, I don't know if it would happen, I kind of looked at Yoder, I don't think that that's a possibility. We did a conditional use, you remember, for a duplex, that's one vacant lot, you know, there. But if on the happenstance that somebody wanted to split their lot into another parcel to build on, you're like, oh, well, what's the minimums? What do I have to be? Well, there is no minimums. But you go back to the fact that you still have to comply with sanitation code, entrance permit requirements, and anything else under the public works umbrella. So if, like in Medora, it's not on sewer and water, so will we give them a septic and well permit? If the answer is no, then they can't split that land. Down in Yoder, can we connect it to the public sewer or water system? If for whatever reason the answer is no, then they can't split it. And so I think we're still covered that way by not having minimum width and depth of parcels. So if they want to do something that's 20 foot wide of road frontage and go down behind another house and put another little shed or a shed house or like a little, mini house, if you will. If it complies with the sanitation code, which would include public sewer and water under the public works umbrella and also entrance permit, then we would allow it.
So eliminating the ratios, we basically put a width or depth in the conversation.
Right.
So we
always have the
because
width and
I get the math, 200 by 200, that's 1 acre, that doesn't count
Yeah.
for 40 acres. I'm just trying to clarify to make sure that if I come to you and want to do a split, my width has to be a minimum of 200, or if my width is not 200, it needs to be at least 200
That's
feet.
road frontage.
Yeah. The width, it has to be a
The
minimum
width
of
is
200.
road frontage.
Okay.
So you still have to comply by both of those.
Yes.
Yeah, and there is no lot depth to width ratio anymore on anything.
Okay, so these are
But there's a minimum road-
just the minimums, I got you.
Minimum road frontages.
Okay.
So as proposed, then someone could make a really long skinny split.
Correct.
So you could have a split that's
200 feet.
200
wide.
feet wide and a mile long.
Yes.
Or you can, it's.
Mile wide and 200 feet
Or-
deep.
Yeah.
And you can kind of have a flag lot. You can have 200 foot, and then it can get wider, but never narrower.
Yeah. The idea is to not get narrow, so.
See?
Okay.
Everywhere on the parcel, you'll see it elsewhere in the regulation, like you'll see it under the individual zoning district. It has to always be 200 foot. It can't be 200 foot of width along the road and go out a couple hundred feet and then shrink down to 150 and then go out a little bit more and then expand back to 200. It can never drop below 200, it can never drop below 150 or 100. So that's gonna help prevent, some situations like a flag lot.
All right, so how wide are those little flag poles on this
60.
example here? That's 60.
That's 60.
Okay, so those two combined are just over half what our minimums will
Yeah.
be. Okay.
Yeah. Or the other one there on the south, Alan, it's 125 feet,
Okay.
southwest corner, right? So you got like right here, right there, that's like 125.
Of course, ag's 200, that's the biggest. All the
Right,
others get
that's the
smaller.
big, the others are more like 100 or
150.
This gives a lot more use for your land, and not near as restrictive as the ratios.
Yes.
Yeah,
The
that's-
ratios were.
So like that would be allowed now.
Okay.
That would be legal and they could build anywhere they want on that parcel instead of being restricted to just what I approved on my survey.
Okay.
That would be allowed now, that would be allowed. You could have a 10-acre split. That would be allowed, that'd be 23 acres. They'd still be limited in another split, but they could do that. So all of these would be no issues now.
All right, so that last one you had there, Mark,
'Cause
go back. The one that was the farm ground that was hidden in the back. Yeah, that one there. All right, so that yellow parcel there, that was split after 2016, is that correct?
Yes.
All right, so that would be legal currently, but they couldn't do any additional splits without plating. Is that right?
It's actually illegal, but for the fact.
Well, it's
that's what
illegal,
said, yeah.
right, but like
But yeah,
hypothetically.
That's their one split.
If we had our new regulations.
That's their one split.
Okay.
And unfortunately, yeah, they don't have any more road frontage on that acreage, and so,
So that's as far as as you could have that big,
you could have
is it
something
like
like
a quarter
that.
section in the back or?
You could have something like that.
Or a square 80 or something, I'm not sure.
I'm sure it's at least 200 foot wide, yeah, I'd have to look at this, I'm sure it's at least 200, so yeah, something like that would be allowed, they could just
Okay.
do
As
what
long as
they
they have the
want.
road frontage.
As long as they had that minimum.
As long as they had that 200 foot of road frontage, which I believe they do, because the reason I said 200, I mean, we have 165 right now. In the ag, when you do a lot split, and also in the R1, but nobody does 165 foot of road frontage, but for the fact that you can't do 165 foot of width, when you do 3 times the depth, you can't get 3 acres. So you're always giving me at least 200 to 250 feet of road frontage so you can get the depth, so you can give me the minimum of 3 acres.
But we're getting rid of the ratio.
But now we're gonna raise the ratio, so, you know, so now it can go down to 1, so now you can do 150 down from 165. You can do a 150 and go back 400, 600, whatever you wanna do. And get your 3 acre minimum.
In my mind, this opens up for a person to be able to buy some land that they want and be able to do what they want with it. I would think that ratio handcuffed a lot of purchasers.
Yeah.
And this is gonna, I'm thinking like Garth now, you know, looking forward, this will open up for more people that come to Reno County and say, okay, I can buy that piece of
A
property
little more
now.
flexible,
A
yeah.
little bit more flexible.
Should that column width, that's labeled width, should that say frontage? I mean, if I'm somebody that's looking up your regs,
Should say road frontage.
I think it'd be better communicated if it said something about the road or frontage or something.
I wrote that note at the top of it.
I think it does in the,
His width is the.
does it say that in, I think it says it in the individual zoning districts. We can change that, John.
Yeah.
It says in the individual zoning district, we haven't got to it yet, Garth, but randomly, it says the minimum width of a lot adjacent to a street, avenue, court, or road. And so when you see the word width, it's referencing this. Now, we can add road or something if you think it clarifies it even more.
You know that it's referred to somewhere else, but as Mr. uninformed taxpayer, looking at this chart only, I think, oh, that's 200, I could have 20 feet of road.
Yep.
I think it'd just be helpful.
Okay.
I don't know if they're there, but the thing you gotta think about too is on the width, road width, whether it's continuous or not, which I think it should, but I don't think, go to that one picture.
Yeah.
I think this road frontage, if this is 150, this, and you have this 50, then that makes your 200. I don't think that's correct.
It should be
I think
calculated
if
as
this
one.
is, I think you can have this, if this is 200, you can have a 50 here. And then still, you can do something later and you can move adjustment and still have your frontage and do something with this. This and this should not equal.
Should be a
200.
cumulative, it
Should be continuous. The
Yes.
200 should be continuous on the parcel.
Yes. Okay. Agreed. So how do you put that in a footnote?
Yeah, I gotta
Put that
decide
in a
where it
footnote,
needs
it
to go.
says
It needs to go
road frontage
somewhere.
width needs to be.
So I think somewhere on this chart would be ideal place to put it, that has to be a 200 foot.
if you go past.
Contiguous.
Put a.
Continuous, the 150, the 100, all.
Could you make a note?
Put a footnote,
that's the
letter
trailer
E
place up there,
down
okay.
here and put an E in each one of
Okay.
these boxes
I
that
recognize
says
it
that needs to be a
All road
continuous.
frontage requirements has to be continuous.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. That would be an easy point.
And then reference that width actually references road frontage.
Yeah.
That might take care
Lot
of your.
width.
Yep.
I'm so glad we're getting to all this.
Oh, my.
I've waited 2 years because of solar and all that went to get to this. Because it's so unfriendly.
Agreed.
Okay.
Hammer down, Mark.
So do you agree with the 200 to 150, 100, 100, those for the ag?
The biggest thing for me is that the ratios are blanked out.
Oh.
The widths, we could talk about that all day long, but the ratios is what
Well, the
really
road-
handcuffed everything.
And I think the road footage is, that gives you plenty of room for access, for emergency and everything else. And if, Public Works is comfortable with that kind of access, I should think everybody else would be.
Well, like when you have in the Ag
Not
200,
defining the size of the lot back, so to speak.
200 frontage.
in an ag, well, you go 200 by what, 240 or something, that's your 3 acres. So it's not, so, that's reasonable, sounds.
Probably, yeah.
And you don't have, with 200 feet, you're separating your drive, we don't have separate access, just one right after the other, like some of those other examples we have.
Yeah, I think that's good.
But probably just further explain, clarify,
We may sleep on it and come back to it, but
Yeah.
I think for right now, that's a great starting point.
a little bit in the R2, the minimum, lot area of an acre, but more importantly, I think R3 being 10,000 square foot or 0.23 acres. I just wanted to make you aware, that's usually gonna be for parcels served by public sewer, public water. However, not always. If you think back a couple months ago or last month when we did the township, Reno Township, that property was R3. And it was 5 acres, something like that. So theoretically, under that, they could split up 10,000 square foot of that parcel and create a buildable lot.
But only if sanitation approves, could
Only
they
if it-
build,
Only
right?
if it meets all the public works.
Right.
So if-
That's the kicker. They've got to have room
Yes.
for septic systems or
Septic wells.
and
Because
everything.
because I think there's city water there, but no sewer, right?
But in the instance, you have an R3 that doesn't have city services, they still have to comply with wells
Right.
and septic setbacks and all
They
that
need to
kind
do
of
their
stuff.
homework.
Yeah.
So that's still a limiting factor.
Oh, yeah. It's a protection factor.
Right.
Me,
Thank you, Alan. Yeah, you stole my thunder and stuff, but yeah. But no, you're exactly right in your thinking. I just wanted to make the board aware that, hey, well, wait a minute, not every single parcel out there is zoned R3 and served by public sewer and water, so I can build a house on 10,000 square foot, only if you can get past sanitation.
Right.
Okay, so I didn't want you to be alarmed with that. One thing I see here under letter C, we probably just need to take out subject compliance with the sanitation code, because we have other wording in there that says you have to
Make it
comply.
consistent
Missed that one.
We missed that one. Cool. All right. Any other questions for now on that? That kind of gives you a lot of background, something to think about for next month. I'll make those few little changes and come back hopefully with a,
Real quick, so we changed all this, all the current properties that are going off of the existing, like, let's just say the R2 is 38 and 20 setbacks, it's still gonna be conforming, it's gonna be legal, it's all gonna be that, because we did expand 30,
Yeah.
10, and 10, like.
The only thing is,
10.
if somebody did build a building, 8 foot from a property line, and now we've gone to 10, and that makes it non-conforming, it'd be considered legal non-conforming, so it's still okay.
All right,
The only concern would be is if it would burn down, what have you,
they'd have to move over 10
they'd have to
feet.
move over 2 feet, or if they wanted to expand that building, then they can't expand it to the 8 foot to make it even with their other buildings. So there's gonna be potentially some concerns with that, but.
2 feet.
In the grand scheme of things, it's non-issue, I just wanted to make sure we weren't causing issues on the backside.
Yeah, no, it's to be considered a legal non-conforming building, perfectly able to use it, you can expand it just as long as it's not expanding down that 8 foot setback line. Okay, move on right quick. Next thing was, when we got to looking at everything and reading all this stuff, everything is referencing like street. And I always think of street as being something in a city. Now, we do have streets like Halsted Street and stuff, but we felt just to make it super clear when we're talking about a street or whatever in the regulations, we haven't changed any of the articles, so there'll still be probably other references to street. We're gonna change the definition of a street to also include an avenue, a court, or a road. That way it covers every public road type of setting.
Lane, boulevard,
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
come on, it's gonna be all encompassing park. Anything else, anybody else can they go throw at it?
Yeah. We hopefully, yeah, we don't reference Lane and Boulevard in there, but we do reference these other ones, so yeah. But, yeah, that's what I was trying to do with that. So definition will stay the same, it's just including those other types of roads. Okay? So then we get into the individual zoning districts because we're looking at changing setbacks and width of depth, and so pretty much all the zoning districts will be the same type of wording. Under the ag, under number 8, it talked about one additional lot of lands used for agricultural purposes. Well, it's not just used for agricultural purposes, okay? You can create one additional lot for a non-ag purpose if you want to, so that needs to really come out of the regulations. Then again, you'll see this in every single article, we'll have that all-encompassing statement in there that all the construction has to comply with all public works divisions. Under 2-107, again, we don't need to have Reno County, we know this is Reno County's subdivision regulations. We did remove along designated major roads and highways in Reno County. I don't know what is a major road and highway in Reno County. There's no list or definition or anything like that that tells me what a major road is, and so it just needs to say that minimum dimensions of yards required shall be then as follows. Under number 1, under 21071, we don't require the ag lot split agreement to be filed with the Register of Deeds. It's just filed here in my office. Background information right quick. So when you apply for an ag lot split, there is an agreement that you have to have signed and actually notarized. What that does is that you, the property owner, signifies that you understand that this is your one-time split of your land without going through a rezone and plating type of process. And so further divisions of that land will require you to rezone and plat that land. And so that notarized signature is on file saying that, hey, you agree that, and you understand that this is your one-time split of that land without going through additional process.
So number 2 is that definition everybody's been looking for.
Yeah. So then the lot dimensions, we added those other street, road, avenue, court, and then we changed it from 660 down to 200, got rid of the ratio, and changed the setbacks to match what was in Article 13. Questions?
Yeah, I got a question, kind of in light of our previous discussion about on-farm activity. What's farm, what's ag, what's commercial? I had this question for another purpose, but I think it fits in here. Under Article 5, the R3, there's a statement that says, all other uses, including any proposed commercial and industrial uses, shall require a conditional use permit. Would it make sense to put that in this somewhere?
Where do you see?
It's on,
5-102, item 2.
yeah.
Yeah, I saw that in there. I don't know why it's specifically called out in that zoning district.
Well, yeah, I wondered, I think
versus
it's in
the other
2
ones.
of them. But it seems like the conditional use permit fits into just about anywhere. And again, if I'm not used to looking at this stuff and I'm trying to figure out what I can do or can't do with my property, I think it'd be a better communication to say that, I like that statement, all other uses need a CUP.
The only reason I think maybe that they include in that is because R3 is usually platted subdivisions, and so you know, people need to realize that, hey, if I'm gonna do commercial in a platted subdivision, it needs to be a conditional use.
Well, same thing with Pine of the Ag though, too, wouldn't it?
It fits the vineyard that we just saw, like the case that we saw last
Yeah.
month.
Yeah.
If it would be, that was all zoned ag, correct?
Yeah.
So if there, whether he understood or not, if he would have read that, he would have said, yeah, since I'm gonna be selling popsicles that I'm buying on the street, I'm gonna need a commercial, a CUP.
So what we do is add
Yeah.
2-110 and put that
Yeah.
paragraph, that sentence in.
Yeah, put that in each
Yeah,
one,
each
that
one.
way if it's out.
It's covered.
I mean, if it's outside of the ags, if it goes back to our seed corn, or seed salesman.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, if he's producing his own seed and then selling seed on top of it, we're probably gonna look past it a little bit, but if all he's doing is buying and selling seed.
As a day job in town.
We're probably gonna be looking at a different thing.
Yeah.
I saw that, you know, I thought, well, we got a lot of text amendments in here anyway, and
What's one more?
it's, what's one? I just basically, well, it's covered in Article 15, you know, that you know.
Yeah,
But, yeah, it's not.
But when somebody looks at the regulations on ag
Right.
districts, it's there. So it's,
They don't have to hunt for
you
it.
don't have to read all the regulations.
I agree.
Well, I would be thinking kind of somebody wants to do it, and they'll say, well, it doesn't say anything about that in it.
Exactly,
In
the other
Article
side, of
2.
it. Yes.
Okay.
Agreed. I like it.
Article 3, just a couple of just wordsmith stuff. Reno County doesn't really have rules, I guess. You know, we have resolutions, we have regulations, we have codes. I don't think I've ever seen anything written as rules. So that can kind of come out and just say regulations. That's kind of an all-encompassing thing. Again, soil suitability classification, I don't know why that was put in there as far as compliance with subregs, sanitation codes, soil suitability. I mean, that would be covered under the sanitation code, so that should come out. I'll add what Garth talked about to the other zoning districts as well.
Is the term low density defined anywhere? I noticed that several times, and I mean, other than it's just what's arrived at based on, what's allowed.
Yeah, I don't know if low density is defined, I don't have my regs in front of me. My guess is probably no.
Well, I don't have a suggestion, it just was a question I had. Reading through this, I wonder what that meant.
Nope. It goes right from lot width, lot zoning to manufacturing.
Is it under density?
E. I'll go look. Yep. Average number of dwelling units per acre of land, expressed in terms of per acre. Example, 300 dwelling units occupying 40 acres of land is 7.5 units per acre.
So what's low density?
Is that high or low?
It doesn't
defines
define it,
density.
just defines density.
So it doesn't say what's low density.
Density doesn't define low or high.
Yep.
Probably need to do that. If we're gonna talk about it, we need to define it.
Yeah. I'm sure there are many, there'll eventually be, probably a whole segment of definitions that we need to do and clarify. That could be one whole public hearing on just definitions alone.
Well,
So.
yeah, but that's part of these regulations, which,
Yeah.
When in Rome, why don't we do it?
yeah,
Well,
just clarify it.
Matter of
It's part
trying
of
to
these
get
regulations.
Oh, okay, I got
matter
you.
of trying to get to it, it's just a matter of trying to get to it, and
Yeah, yeah.
apply it, but yeah, I hear you, yeah. I was looking mainly at the stuff that affected setbacks and lot split, while we have.
You know us, we're not gonna let you off that easy.
I know you're not, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know you're gonna keep me on my toes. Everything else I thought was pretty standard here. I know, certainly speak up if you got a question. Under R2, same type of wording. I don't know if there's anything different under R2. R3, R3, for whatever reason, was written different than the other zoning districts, and so rather than try and save some words and fit them in with the way they had it, I just would rather just cross it all out and then rewrite what you see there. They had lot size, dimensions, and I changed it to like minimum lot size and dimensions, and so then that's where I added in here, that's 10,000 square foot. Then they had lot area per family, and I don't know the thinking behind that either. I never noticed that really until I started really looking at it. So I changed it lot area per dwelling unit. Again, it still has to comply with all the public works regulations and codes. Okay? I was going too fast or so. Under Article 6, under the village district, just scratch that last sentence that says, instead of saying comply with the sanitation code, add the sentence down below that says it complies with public works codes, policies, and regulations. Then under number 6, no minimum lot area is established. It is required that sufficient area will be provided to meet the requirements established here. And so in essence, hey, we're not gonna tell you how much land you need to split off, but whatever you split off still has to comply with all of the policies and codes and regulations of the Public Works Department. Okay? And then, lastly, under Article 14, this is where we'd like to strike letters D and E. Letters D and E. E is the easy one where we're talking about 2 front yard setbacks where you could have that break of 15 feet. So if we do reduce the setbacks as proposed, then our request would be to eliminate that little break that you get, because we're giving you more of your land back along the road, so we don't really need to have a break just because you have 2 streets or 2 roads. Letter D is probably really confusing, and I've never used it. Letter D, Jack might know, it's probably a city regulation. Essentially, if you're like in a subdivision, or if you're in amongst a group of tracts of ground with houses in there, and all those houses are set back, say, 25 feet from the road right away, and you happen to have a vacant lot in between, we would let you build your house out to that 25-foot setback instead of having to be 5 foot further back and be at 30 foot. That's usually a city regulation for what they call like established neighborhoods or established subdivisions where you got 15, 20 houses. I mean, just pick any street in Hutchinson or any other city for that matter, and all the houses are set at 20 feet, for example, but yet the setback changed now throughout the years, and now the setback is 30 feet, so now, you would have to be 30 feet. No, we'll let you be that 20 foot you know, to match the other houses along your street that way. That way you have a nice even row of houses, and something like that's not really used.
Are there any subdivisions or areas in the county where somebody might care about that?
Not that I thought of. Not really. I don't-
Somebody gonna plat it, a land, I mean, they may have covenants or something and setbacks
Yeah.
within their district that they, or the neighborhood they develop.
Yeah, they may have something like that, but that'd be up to
And that
them
would
to
still be,
enforce.
and that would still apply, but that wouldn't be enforced by.
Right, yeah, so if they wanna have their own covenant that says 50 feet, and mine says 20,
They should come up.
I'm gonna give you a permit for 20, and if your developer says it's gotta be 50, then that's on them.
Got another question for you.
Yep.
Going back to Garth's question on low density. I kind of quickly Googled that, and it's kind of a undefined term. Why do we even need it in there? My question, because the lot sizes are all prescribed in the regulations. So it doesn't, you're not saying anything about how many housing units, you know, per neighborhood. You're saying we got lots of this size, you can put a house on it. So I think we can just delete just the words low density and just say development of residential
Where
neighborhood.
did you see it under R1?
It's Article 3,
Article 3.
3-101 in the third line. And it's in, I think it's in 4 and 5 too, or 4 at least.
Yeah, it's on 4.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't see any need to leave that in there just because it's meaningless. You know, why, you know, unless you want to try to define it, because the lot sizes are all set by statute. And you put a
Set by
house on this
regulation,
lot.
yeah.
So, I mean, that determines the density. You don't have some other definition, say low density is this, so.
You can't overload it.
No.
Lot sizes are determined.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it'd be easier just to eliminate the term, or just say density, would density is defined?
Eliminate the term low density. Just have it read development of residential neighborhoods.
Or that, yeah, I haven't read it all the way through,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, just eliminate those two words out of each of those sections.
That'd be easier than trying to define.
Yeah, well, we're gonna have an argument about trying to define that,
Yeah.
you know, when in essence it's already defined by the
Well,
regulations.
the reason that's in there is because it's talking about the purpose of that zoning district, so, you know, they want to do.
But I think it's simpler, I think it's meaningless, I think it's easier, just take those two words out and go for it.
Okay,
Simplification.
we can do that. Okay, so far what I'm hearing is take that out. We'll discuss that situation there and eliminate being able to split a lot like that,
Right.
or have that situation occur.
Continuous frontage,
And
yeah.
then, I have a circle there. I'll add that to conditional uses,
Right,
to all the other districts.
right.
That can happen,
Yeah,
as long as one of them's
one
200
has
foot.
200 feet, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, right. You can't use that situation.
Can't go 150/50. Yeah, it has to be.
Has to be 200
You could-
somewhere.
You could have 250 there, but 200 is the magic number in ag,
Or
165,
whatever that
so on.
number is. Okay. Yeah, it doesn't have to be written to let people know that that is allowed. If you have 200 on one side, you
When
can
you have a
50.
parcel, you have to have a second that has the minimum width.
It might be all right.
required to a road.
It might be all right just leaving it that way. Yeah, I didn't think about it, but yeah. So, okay.
Thank you for your hard work. Appreciate that. Gives us something to ponder for next month. Now, do you want, how do you want us, I mean, I'd like, I mean, it's like any text amendment or any action that we want to make. I'd like to sleep a few times on this. And you want to come back with maybe try to make a draft next month? How do you want us to attack it?
You mean what you look at?
Like say we come to this and we say, all right, all of our suggestions are good to go. We like it. Can you get us a hard copy of a draft of what we've done tonight by next month?
Maybe.
Should be, we haven't made that many
Taking that out, all
changes.
you gotta do is a couple of things to change.
Yeah, I mean, it's like,
We haven't made that
Can you
many
get a,
changes.
can you get us a, can you, if you can get us a draft and we review it next
Yeah.
month?
So you like it?
Yeah.
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 I mean, I
I think
don't
with little
see,
tweaks we've got in there, it looks good.
so you want, like, highlighted in yellow what you suggested
I
tonight?
would just say,
Just
give
make
us,
the
give us,
changes?
Or
just
just-
make the changes and give us a draft copy and we'll take a look
Just
at
make the
it.
changes and give you.
Yeah,
And if we, and
And
then we've
we'll-
got a month to sleep on it and look at this copy.
and we'll read the draft in our packet and come prepared.
And if you like it, then we just remove draft and it's done.
Yep.
Move draft done, publish it.
Well, we'll probably have 20 other amendments to make.
You would.
I'm not gonna drag this thing out for
What,
3 years.
I guess, what is our?
Make the changes, then just give you a clean copy
A
with no.
clean copy to review for next month. Yep,
To have it draft,
and then we can,
with the date on it, so I don't confuse it between my other drafts. We're probably gonna have 15 drafts when
Right.
we're done.
we've had a few of those cases,
Yeah,
haven't
we
we?
have. I finally dated them. you know.
Hopefully this maybe won't be as long.
I think
Well,
the
there
review
shouldn't be.
won't take
There
very
shouldn't
long.
be.
This was a good night.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Right.
What's our, I guess, are we done visiting about this? So we can move on to the next agenda item.
Item one.
New business or other business?
I have, I want to go back to Steve's comment earlier. I know it doesn't fit in now, but, you know, my understanding of government, it takes a while before something gets to the front of the line. And that is the coordination between departments of, you know, the proper way to make, for a taxpayer to make their way through the system, there should be helpful checks along the way that says, no, you need to go check with this other department because we can do it, but they won't let you do it. And I sense that in some of these cases that we hear that it's just, I mean, people are not experts in this stuff. Taxpayers shouldn't be expected to be experts, but if I go to the Register of Deeds office and file a deed, I have to assume must be okay. And then later, when I run into Mark's department and he tells me, no, well, why didn't they tell me to check with Mark? It seems like much better service to taxpayers if we can somehow start building that coordination into our local government.
100% agree. There you've got to get interdepartmental cooperation.
Well, all but the Register of Deeds has been handled because to come out here to get a permit for any of this stuff, whether it's environmental or road and bridge or planning and zoning, it's
As far as
all in
land
this
use, it's
building.
all pretty much focused here.
They just have to walk 30 feet and they got it taken care of.
Exactly.
And, you know, maybe somehow we can explore getting, you know, some level of cooperation with that office.
Maybe something internally we can look at.
Well, the Register of Deeds is an elected position,
It
right?
is. Yeah.
So there's, in theory, there's nothing,
Right.
it's all a carrot approach. There's no possible stick
Right.
within the organization.
Right.
Right?
About service to your taxpayers, to your customers. You know,
Yeah, but we all strive to work together, so.
Well, that's good.
yeah, they do.
Yeah, well, at the same time, though, I don't necessarily want to review every single deed that's filed. Because, I mean, yeah,
Well, it may be just,
2/3 of it's unzoned, so I don't care,
well,
you know.
then, I mean, that's part of it. They would know whether it's in the zoned area or not.
Yeah.
If it's in the zoned area, then they can ask a question.
Well, they would have to read it, right? Because they don't read it, they just file it. They just file it.
Yeah.
I had that thought the other day, looking at my tax statement. It seems like it should tell me I'm in a zoned area. And some, you know, before you do build anything, contact your, whoever, planning and zoning. But I'm guessing a fair number of Reno County residents can't tell you whether they're in a zoned or unzoned area.
I know that for a fact.
But your taxes wouldn't have anything to do with whether
Yeah.
you're zoned or unzoned.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Well, I know, but just as a means of communicating to me, if I want to start a business on my property that I own, well, I guess I can just do that because I already own it. No, you can't because you're in a zoned area.
Yeah, I don't know how to communicate that, but I read my property taxes from top to bottom. I mean, it's just what I do. And
Well,
if it says something, and if there's a sentence in there that says, just a reminder, you're in the zone portion of the Reno County, that's all it would have to
It just
do.
eliminates the excuse of nobody told me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or you have to go talk to the county appraiser's office.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Another internal discussion.
I had to call them the other day on my property, real estate,
Yeah.
personal property. They were assessing penalties.
Well, I know they don't put it on there nor is it on, Beacon, because, not necessarily in our county, but like in cities, zoning can and does change with people, and so then you're gonna have to update all those records, and so, I'd rather than just not even have it on there at all, but,
Is it on the property record card? It's not on your tax.
Look on here, it says it's got a property
it's on the
class
PFC.
and a zoning. So, part of that's up to the landowner to,
There is some onus there for sure, but there's also, we have a responsibility to help them, lead them along the way, just a little bit. Just a little bit. We don't need to take them the whole journey. We just need to make sure that they understand what their destination is.
Any other departments we need to reorganize?
Well, since you mentioned it, no. Something's been grinding on me since we had that case with the township shop there on West Fourth. And it just been, when I was on the township board, this has been quite a few years ago, probably more than 20. It's probably before Don was even on the county, in the county side of things. We used to have annual township meetings where you would discuss where to put a stop sign. Why do you need road safety signs? Why do you need, that, just something like that. Would there be some value to have? I mean, you can't require it, and I don't think those were required either, but we all, we were all township guys. We were gonna get a free meal off the county. We were darn well gonna be there. We'd have something like that with our builders in the area and say, hey, don't know if you know or not, but this is what the codes are, and this is what zoning is, and this is what is required. As you are selling these buildings, make sure your people that are buying these understand what they need, what their requirements are. And I don't know if that's something we should look
A
at.
lot of times, I did budgets for most of the townships in Reno County for a number of years. And that was probably one of the few times you'd get all the township trustees and treasurers and general officers all in the same room. And they'd sit down there and some of them would treat it as kind of an annual meeting and we'd go over stuff like that. And if they wanted to do a building, there was a process. And sometimes I'd find out about it after the fact, like Mark does, and, the building's already built. Well, did you know you were supposed to have an election to get approval to do this? No, so, I mean.
Some of them do.
Some did, some
didn't.
didn't.
But I'm not really gearing it towards the townships as a focus. I'm more of a, let's bring in the builders. Bring in and we could probably make a short list based upon the CUPs that we've had come through here of guys that we probably ought to invite in here to help them. And it's not gonna be,
Q&A section.
it's not gonna be to browbeat them. We're gonna feed them and make them smart so they can sell more buildings and make the process more smooth. I don't know.
I can feed. Okay, yeah, I go for that.
I don't know. Budgets are tight. I get it. But I'm just using that as an example, the township feed that we had. Just to Steve's point, you had everybody's undivided attention for an hour and a half.
Well, it should be, the buck gets passed on whether you have a permit or not. So it's up to the landowner to get the permit, but yet and then the contractor starts building, well, I assume the landowner got the permit. Where if you're in the city, the property owner gets a permit and it's posted.
Right.
And the contractor needs to see it before they start. And the contractors, that should be the same way outside of the city. They should have that, they should see that permit, and if they don't start building.
But it goes back to that education piece. If we don't tell them that they need to see it, we're back to where we.
And are they
where we
building in
started.
the zoned area, the unzoned area?
That's true.
So there's, I don't know, it's just been kind of grinding on me a little bit and just kind of going around, running rent-free in my head and.
Yeah.
I mean, if nothing else, I mean, you could put together just kind of a little
Yeah, we can try.
newsletter memo to send out to contractors, reminding them of this stuff, you know,
Yep.
because
Have you reminded your purchaser that they have to, in the zone county, they have to do this and this and this and this? I don't know. I don't know what that looks like.
Because we've never really
It's
tried to do that.
it's
yeah.
down on the list, but it's probably something you ought to put on
Yeah.
on your project list somewhere down the line.
Well, in the unzoned area too, you have to know whether you're in a floodplain
Yep. Yep.
or any of that.
Well, it's,
And you have to, in the unzoned, you have to know where you're building your buildings based on where your septic system and well is too. So it's not just the zoned area.
exactly. I mean, it's all, it covers all.
But I don't know what you do to get,
I don't know either, Don. I'm,
voluntary compliance is what you're trying to get, and you've got to, the only way you can do that is through education.
So I like the education bit, because there's gonna be people that are gonna do what they want
Oh, yeah.
regardless. But I don't think most people are intentionally flaunting zoning regulations.
I think they're going.
Don doesn't agree with you.
Well, we got,
I agree with the most maybe.
I say most is a qualifier. But, that's, the problem has been recurring often enough that we know it's a problem.
yes.
Well, it occurs because there's no consequence.
Right.
And, there's been suggestions that there's going to be consequences, whether it's you build a building and you don't get a permit, maybe the consequence is a fine of 1% of the cost of whatever you built or something. I'm not suggesting that, but that's a consequence. And when all it is, okay, now you got to buy, $100 permit times 2, so what? They'll take that chance.
Yeah.
So that's another subject that's coming.
Yeah.
Right,
It's-
right. It seems like right now, the only consequence is you run the risk of your half-built building.
Being denied.
Or the.
And typically, we don't do that. I
Which we-
remember doing that once.
I think we've done that once in my time.
I don't know.
And that was because it was a variance.
Yes.
That wasn't because it was a special
Yeah,
exception.
he wanted to put
So
it.
variances have
roadway.
a lot stricter criteria than just this board or the BZA looking at a special exception. So yeah, if it was a special exception and met the setback, it'd probably been approved right there, but it didn't meet setback.
And when we create consequences or fines, then we do have to get the word out there so that.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So it's.
So it's not a surprise.
Yeah.
And then,
I mean,
then you have to enforce it, and the first you guys are gonna piss and moan, and you just say, well, I'm sorry, you were told, you didn't believe us, I'm sorry, but, then
Yep.
kind of make an example of the first few, and then the word spreads.
it's gotta be a
How
sacrificial
does,
lamb.
that's a text amendment right through here anyhow, isn't it?
Yeah.
The, an amendment to the permit resolution, actually, so it wouldn't,
It wouldn't even need a.
it probably wouldn't come through here. Because because the permits and stuff aren't in the regulations, the permits are in the county resolution. So it'd be just something that the commissioners would amend the existing building permit or zoning permit
Somebody needs to
resolution.
put a bug in the county commissioners here.
You're gonna.
So what do other counties do? Because I would think the idea of,
Harvey County is all zoned.
so if you have somebody that's.
Everybody struggles with it.
It makes it more difficult when you're partially zoned
Yeah.
and unzoned. There's people who don't know, they don't.
Like other counties, they'll have code enforcement.
Okay, so they'll have.
They'll have more staff, they'll have code enforcement, and so that's part of it.
So they do have sticks, not just carrots.
Right. But,
So Mark wants to hire
Yeah.
code enforcers.
yeah, we'll have that, or they'll have like codes court, which would be something that'd be faster than going through district court. But counties that have building codes will have code enforcement, so they'll catch a lot of that as well. But some of the rural counties or some of the counties that don't have building codes, yeah, it's same struggle, same struggle.
And this is
I
a
don't know
rural
that we
county.
even need building codes. I'm just thinking of
Yeah.
putting it up before they come talk to you.
Right.
I'm
Getting to the
oversimplifying by a lot, but it is that simple.
And you can do that 2/3 of the county. As long as you meet, you can put a building wherever you want, as long as you meet the other public works regulations, which is environmental and whatever. But
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't mean to keep us longer with an extended conversation, but I just thought
No.
it's been running
Yeah.
rent-free, and I thought that we put that on your list. Yep.
Good talk, yeah, that was.
Any other business to be brought up before the board? Staff,
Anything?
good?
I'm happy.
The rest of the board?
I move we adjourn.
I second.
Then moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor for adjournment, say aye.